All right. Welcome, everybody, to Chalice and Chains. My name is Sam, and today I'm super excited because we're playing some more Star Wars, but we're going to be doing Force and Destiny. This is going to be a new campaign. Oh, no, and we just lost one of our players. This will be a new campaign titled Dark Disciples, in which my players will be taking on dark side devotees, so to speak, young Force users that are being trained by an Emperor's Hand, Ardyn Lynn, who was featured in the Sunday Sandbox campaign, and trained in the dark side of the Force. So the purpose of this session today is kind of to sort of finish up character creation and do a little background stuff here, kind of getting to know their characters, the background for their characters and stuff like that, and then setting up the events for the first session. So we will get started with that. All right, there we go. Cool, everybody's back. We are using Zoom for our software, which I recommend that you use, but you will notice that if cameras turn off or if somebody drops, the little overlay I got set up here will get all weird, so don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah. My bad. I didn't realize this had a driving mode. I was switching through the photos, and when I went to one, apparently it turns my video and voice off while I'm driving, and I have to tap it to talk, so that's what happened.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I will avoid that in the future.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, and I accidentally I X'd out of it, so I suck. Whatever.
And no, it's fine. That's fine. So new software, we're getting used to it. But it looks good. It's great software. It works well. I'd recommend it. So anyway, let's see. Okay. So why don't we do this? I'll start by having you guys introduce the characters that you're playing. Obviously their name, their species, the career and specialization. And then, anything that you might want to say about them. You can maybe tell us a little bit about like what your concept for them. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start with Jose. Jose, if you want to go ahead and tell us about your character.
All right, hey everybody, I'm Jose, playing Seth Hillary. He's a human warrior. 1 second, I showed Knight. I don't know how to say that, but he's pretty much like a thug, pretty much, who ended up having force powers, and he's just a tough guy. Like he can take a beating, pretty much.
Cool. And what we'll do throughout the session tonight is we'll kind of talk a little bit about where these characters came from and how they ended up in really in Ardyn Lynn's, not employ, but under her tutelage. So cool. All right, so why don't I jump over now to Chris. And you are either muted or your mic's having a hard time again. Doesn't look like you're muted. Can't hear you. All right, I'll kick it over to Anthony for now, and then we'll get it back. So Anthony, if you want to go ahead and introduce who you're going to be playing and kind of your concept.
Yeah, no problem. The name's Dar. I found myself stranded as a young boy on Dathomir when my parents, who were traders, were traveling along that hyperspace route and our ship crash landed there. I've seen horrible things. I've been tortured by the Night Sisters. The Night Brothers kept me a slave, and it was only then until the Imperials found me where I was given some meager existence and clothing. The only thing I have to show for it are these 2 rapiers, and he pulls out 2 rapiers that I've taken from a Night Brother who I choked one night in the forest of Dathomir as he beat me helplessly. It was then that I knew my true power and my true calling. Something greater awaits me. And he's a human. He is a warrior aggressor.
Very cool. Very cool. You'll notice a theme here with the exception of Chris's character. These characters are rather scary, but this is a dark side campaign, so they should be. All right, so Chris, you've got the mute icon, so hopefully your mic is working. So if we want to try this again.
Hopefully. Oh, yes. All right. So I am playing Tiona Mir. She is a Mariellen.
Yep.
She's got kind of your hard luck story growing up, and she's one who's fallen into kind of the wrong crowd, and it's caused her to catch the attention of maybe an authority or two, and I think she's been ID'd as a force user and hauled in.
Nice.
So
and
she's not sure she wants to be where she is.
No doubt, yeah. And she's a sentinel artisan, right?
She is a sentinel artisan. Yeah, she's going to be a mechanic-y, computery, handy kind of girl.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, thank you. And Rory, I'll kick it to you next.
My name is Wango Lacru, or Wango to non-Twi'leks. He was born a slave, sold by the Twi'lek people, as they do every year, to off-worlders. And he at first was in the employ of a man named Galar Sobrevan as a child. And he never saw any other slaves older than 10, and he just thought that that's how old people were. But then he found out why when he was traded around that age to somebody who swapped a few younger children for him, and he went to work in a hut mine in the Outer Rim. But Wengo is a natural force user, like most of us, and he is considered a mystic of sorts. He sort of never became like a point of anything that made him stand out necessarily, because he wasn't like doing backflips or anything like that. But in the mines, you ate based on the amount of minerals or whatever it was they were mining, by how much you were able to produce. And he just seemed to have a natural instinct for where to find this stuff. And he just tended to get fed well as a result, which also led to a lot of fights with other slaves. So don't think he's necessarily fond of other slaves either. I wouldn't make that mistake. He grew to hate the people who would enslave other people, and he grew to hate people that allowed themselves to be enslaved by other people. So there's not a lot of other stuff to him. Wango's might be a one-note character.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, so we'll see how Wango progresses throughout the campaign. And Corey, if you want to finish off the character introductions for us, that'd be great.
Alrighty, so I'll be playing a. We're gonna call her what she is, and you're gonna change it on there. She's a Dothmarian. She is not Zalrak. And but it is a race of Zalbrak. She is a mystic, and a new class actually to the game called Magus. Magus, right? Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Magus or Magus, maybe.
Yeah. And her name is Vado Obeo. Because of the way she looks, she doesn't look like a normal Zalbrak. She was raised with normal Zalbraks, but she's gray with black tattoos, and she has no hair. And she was shunned, certainly, by the people. They thought she was a witch from a very small age. And she thought because she looks like the witches that used to be on Dothmere, that are called the Night Sisters. But they've been gone for a really long time. And it doesn't make sense how this person could be here when how could they have not been spawned by somebody that isn't alive? So is she a Night Sister? Is she not a Night Sister? She shows some very strange powers, kind of like Night Sisters. I guess we'll find out when we play this game.
Awesome. Whoa, I almost ended the Zoom call. That would have been bad. So, yeah, cool. And so we, just to kind of set it up for everybody, we are using mostly the Force and Destiny core rulebook, but we have been using some of the supplemental books as well. So I'm very excited about that. Anyone who hasn't played the system or isn't super familiar with the system, the core book really gives you everything you need, but the supplemental books are amazing generally, especially in this Force and Destiny line. And you can really use them in any campaign, primarily if you are looking to use specifically the races and stuff like that. That would work, even if you're not using a Force user, doing a Force user campaign. But we are going to, I'm going to set the scene a little bit, and then we're going to kind of dig into the nitty gritty of the actual character creation, if there's anything we need to sort of finish up. And then primarily what we're going to try to do is a little bit of improv into each of the characters' sort of background a little bit, play out the scene where maybe they first were discovered by the Empire or whoever, and the circumstances into which they came to be with Ardyn Lynn. We'll reveal some stuff as well about Ardyn Lynn and about the premise of this game. But ultimately, if you guys aren't familiar, Ardyn Lynn is a character in the Star Wars lore. I don't know if she is considered official canon or if she's Legends or whatever, but we introduced her
Legends now.
Yeah, yep. Legends, yeah. We introduced her in the Sunday Sandbox campaign, which is on the channel. You can check that out. She is, at least in the universe that I have going on, she acts as the Emperor's hand. But she kind of has a little bit of an interesting past. She was a young Sith way back, I think something like 25,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, a long time ago. And she was basically brought back into a new body in this time. And, you know, she might not have been too happy about that. Her former Sith lover is no longer around, obviously. So for now, she serves the Emperor, but she does not like the Emperor. And one of the Emperor's people, Grand Admiral Zarin, one of the 12 Grand Admirals of the Empire, has also, as of late, been putting plans into motion that will possibly try to overthrow the Emperor. And so with Ardyn's help, hopefully he can accomplish that. But Ardyn Lynn realized that the Emperor is powerful and that she cannot hope to defeat him on her own. And even though Zarin is ambitious, she realizes that his ambition is great, but he does not have enough resources to to execute his plan as well. And so she has decided to scour the galaxy looking for Force users. But instead of either send them to Coruscant to train as Inquisitors or to kill them outright, she gave them a chance to live, train under her, serve the Empire, and hopefully one day become powerful Force users that she can use to overthrow the Emperor. She did not tell them this, though. So, as far as they know, she is just a agent of the Empire, and they're probably just happy to be alive and not being killed, enslaved, or otherwise. So the scene starts with that feeling that you have felt for weeks, maybe months now, of traveling through space. You are in your bunk in a ship, a Corellian Corvette, a CR-90, I think is what they're called, the Corellian Corvette. This has been retrofitted to be used specifically by Ardyn Lynn. And the name of this ship is the Chimera. And this ship is interesting because you guys don't have access to the bridge crew or anything like that. You basically there's a suite of essentially bunks. You have your own little sort of rooms, your own little cabins. And then there is a training facility that takes up some of the larger cargo bays on this ship. This is basically a mobile training facility. And you guys have been here, maybe practicing against droids in combat. You've been going through some exercises in the Force. But for the most part, Ardyn Lynn, after she brought you here, has told you that soon you will begin training, but she was waiting for she had to complete a mission for the Emperor. And she did complete that mission. And as she returned and promised that you would start your training, she returns with a young girl, another Mary Allen, who she tells you that the name of this girl is Kiga. And for anybody who watched the previous campaign, Kiga was featured in the Sunday Sandbox campaign. And they didn't treat her real nice, so this ended up happening. So we are looking at right now. It's been maybe a day or two since this young girl arrived. She's kept to herself, despite any kind of attempts maybe by you guys to talk or not. You also know that there is the original disciple here, one that was here before you ever arrived here, a masked figure. You know that he's a Twi'lek, but he always wears this mask on his face. He's a little bit older than the rest of you, seems a little more experienced, and he's a piece of work. He's the one thing that stands out about this guy, who you only know his name, Kazel, are his yellow eyes, the eyes of those of someone who's already turned to the dark side of the Force. He is powerful, but not nearly as powerful as your teacher, Ardyn Lynn. And so what we're going to do now is, before we actually get into any kind of story, we're going to just go through, and I'm going to open it up to you guys. And if you have any questions about, finishing up the characters, any questions about the motivations or anything like that, we'll go through that. I will also kind of talk about the sort of core mechanic at one point of this game, which is morality, and how that will play into the game. And how the fact that we're playing Darksiders, how that changes a little bit the mechanically the way this game works. So before I go into all of that, I'm going to open it up to you guys. If you have any questions, or if there's any part of your character that you want to, talk about a little bit more.
I wanted to say my backstory real quick because I didn't say it earlier.
Okay.
So, my character's Seth Kilrayan. He was born in Nar Shaddaa. He was a slave when he was young, and so was his mother. His father owed crime lord money, and then he ended up running away, so they had to pay for it. And eventually, another crime boss noticed him, and he felt pity for him, especially him having a son who kind of looked like him, so he took him in. And growing up, he pretty much ended up just running jobs for this guy. And one night, a rival gang jumped him, and he was defending the crime lord's son. And that's when he ended up finding out that he was forced. and after that he pretty much like ran away from there because knowing what the force is and the kind of people that come after you. So that's how he ended up being captured and ended up here.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're gonna discover that a lot of these characters have tragedies in their past, and likely tragedy in their future too. But we'll see. Cool. Yeah. So thanks.
I
for
have
sharing. Yeah.
I have one question. I have on my sheet. I made this one a while ago,
Yep.
so I think I knew what this was at one point. But so I have my morality. I have it set to 29 because I took the penalty there in the beginning. But my conflict is set to 0. But I can't remember what conflict is or if I should have some.
Nope, not yet. So conflict is the sort of mechanic that we use in this game when you guys do things. Not even necessarily using the force, but especially using the force. Conflict is just what it sounds like. It's your internal conflict, how you are experiencing the world.
This is the one that's accumulated each session, isn't it? And then it gets like basically it's there's a calculation into your morality which adjusts your morality up or down. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. And it has to do with using the force the side that you're aligned to versus like on the dice instead of using light side as dark, like something like that.
Okay. It can, yeah. So you can accumulate conflict whether you use the force or not. But normally the way the mechanic works is when you use the dark side of the force, you have to so the way you would use force powers or talents or whatever is you would roll your force dice. Normal light side characters, if you generate a light side, they're called pips, but a light side point, you can use that to fuel your force powers. But if you generate dark side pips, which are actually more common because in Star Wars lore, it represents the seductiveness and the ease of accessing the dark side. So there's more they will come up more often. If you use the dark side, you have to flip a destiny point. You have to take 2 strain, and you gain conflict for each dark side point that you would use. And then conflict, yes, will ultimately at the end of the session, you kind of roll a d10, you add your however much conflict you accumulated, and then whatever the number is, it will sort of equate to whether your morality shifts more towards the light or more towards the dark. And morality is on a 1 to 100 scale, with 50 being generally where people start, right in the middle. If you get over 70, you are considered a paragon of the light side. You're just unbelievably good in the force. If you fall below 30, you are a dark sider. And even if you come back up above 30, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can become light side again. You have to atone. So, yep. So that's morality, but you don't start with any points in morality. Yep.
So I didn't really get into reading about the force yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my character comes with 1 force. Yep. And so I've been wondering about how just get more force to go. Mm-hmm. Do we, how does that work?
So you start with a force rating of 1. Most characters in a game of Force and Destiny will be either force rating 1, maybe force rating 2. There's only a few careers or specializations that can get you up to force rating 3, and that is through the use of talents. You can buy a talent in your talent tree that will give you another force rating. Your force rating equates to the amount of dice that you can roll. So if you have a force rating of 1, you roll 1 force dice. Force rating of 2, 2 force dice. 3. So I don't have the book with Darth Vader in it, but apparently he's got quite a big force rating, like 6 or something. It's ridiculous. Yep. So don't mess with Darth Vader. Yeah.
Try not to.
Who would mess with Darth Vader? I don't know anybody who could do that.
I don't know anybody that's ever sassed Darth Vader before.
No.
Yeah. Inside joke from our previous campaign.
Watch.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I guess it wasn't even part of the. Yeah, well, yeah, you did play your campaign characters, didn't you? It was a prologue session though, but yeah, I believe Sasha got force pushed across a room or something by Darth Vader.
Freaking amazing.
More like
she
force
sassed him.
thrown.
Yeah.
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 And then Zaya just decided to try to make buddies with him, and he then told her to fuck off.
Yeah. He was like, no. But yeah, so that's how that works. This game is a little bit. It's got that extra thing, right? Because where Force and Destiny, where Age of Rebellion and Edge of the Empire, it's skills, talents, equipment, right? This one then adds the Force, and so you've got your Force rating. You have talents, which can be Force talents or regular talents, and then you have Force powers, and they all require XP to acquire, but with Force powers, they'll have very specific things that they can do, and you'll be able to. They also are restrictive based on your Force rating. So certain Force powers are available as a Force rating of 1. But some, like I think the ability to use Force Lightning, you have to be Force rating of 2 for that. So that kind of comes along later on in your Force training.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where I was wondering if I maybe needed to take some additional morality issues to get some more XP, because I can't do anything with Force right now. I just have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then you and I think Rory mentioned that he did this. When you do that, if it would knock you down to 29 morality, which is essentially a dark sider at that point. You're not like a full-on dark side. You don't yet suffer any of the effects of being a dark sider, but you would be a dark sider officially. And what that will mean is you would use dark side points instead of light side points. You wouldn't have to flip a destiny point to use dark side points because you're already using them. You still suffer strain because the dark side still takes its toll on you, but you're more likely to be able to use the Force. But again, using the dark side of the Force creates conflict, and conflict adjusts your morality. If you get down to 20 morality, you, I believe, permanently reduce your strain threshold by 1, but you increase your wound threshold by 1, because the Force makes you strong, but it also takes its toll on you, right?
I think that happens at 29. I think I already made that adjustment. And,
yeah, I think if you go below 30, it's dark side.
Oh, then maybe it's the second one at 20. That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that could be it then. So yeah, I couldn't remember when I was reading through it this morning. I thought that it was, but I think you're right. I think it does actually start at 30.
So when you do that, how many? Since we're already this, how many Force points additional does that get you? Just 1?
No, you don't gain any additional Force points. You know how in Edge of the Empire you could take on additional obligation to get you experience points or credits? That's what this does too.
This just got me experience points that I used for a Force talent, which I also couldn't really afford without it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had that either. But I thought, like, honestly, it came down to the fact that I think this Force skill was something that it just made sense for, like, my backstory. Like, I took sense, so I can sense the Force interacting with the world around them. And I just felt, because me and Sam had talked about how I was probably working in a mine and how maybe I could sense where things were. And I was like flipping through the book and I was like, well, I have to have that.
Yeah.
I need another 10 XP real quick.
I didn't get as far as looking at them. I guess I should do that while you guys ask other questions.
See, all living. Yeah, I can spend a Force point an F, I think that's what that stands for, to sense all living things within a short range. Or I can spend a force point to sense the current emotional state of a living target with whom I'm engaged.
Oh, yep. You're right. It does start at 30. So on page 52 of the core rule book, it says when you drop below 30, your character generates force points using dark side results. Character's presence in the group alters the starting destiny pool. We're not going to do that in this case because you're all sort of intending to be darksiders, so we're going to ignore that rule for now. Normally what would happen is when you're playing a light side campaign but somebody goes dark, every session you flip a light side point to a dark side point automatically. But
eventually we're going to have 4 or 5 darksiders.
Yeah,
so
in this case we're intending to do that, so we'll reverse it. So if anybody goes up into like the light side paragon, maybe we'll reverse it in that case, but I don't see that happening, but you never know. And yes, the character's strain threshold may decrease and wound threshold may increase. So your strain would decrease by 1, but your wound threshold would increase by 1, which is cool. And then it would do it again if you get down to 20 morality.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Allegiance to the dark side reduces the force user strain threshold. This reflects the character's dependence on conflict. At the same time, his wound threshold increases as he becomes inured to pain. So you're more able to shrug off pain and deal with that.
I just had a crazy idea. What if, for our purposes, we flip everything the other way?
Well, we kind of are, in the sense that if you guys are have taken that strain, or not strain, sorry, if you've taken on the extra or reduced your morality to take on that extra XP or whatever, which I would recommend you do, honestly. If we're playing a dark side campaign, you might as well be darksiders and gain the, either the credits or the XP. Then the way it works is kind of the opposite. You just use dark side instead of light side, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I just have a question about that. Like, so using the dark side, when you're a dark side paragon, it still costs strain to use dark side force points. Does it also cause strain to use light side because it's the opposite side as you, or is light side still basically without strain? Like, is that still a better force?
Yeah, let me take a look. So the it's on page 281 of the core rule book. It's a little thing that says dark side force users. Rules presented here for force power checks assume the character using the powers of light side force user. If he drops below 30, he becomes a dark side. Let's see. When a dark side force user makes a force power check, instead of using the light side to generate his force powers, he uses the dark side. Dark side force user. If the dark side force user wishes to use light side, then they must flip a destiny point and suffer strain equal to the. Oh yeah, sorry. So I think I was confused. I was confusing you guys before. You don't suffer strain using the dark side if you have already gone below that 30 morality, right?
Got it. That does become your source of power.
Yes. Yep.
Wait a minute. But do you still get conflict?
Yes. You do still get conflict.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, I think.
Yeah. And so that's the key. So right now, if you are not at 29 morality or below, you're still using the light side points as normal, right? But what's going to happen is Ardyn is going to encourage you to draw on the dark side because it's more powerful, it's easier to use, and it can make you stronger. Where if you're already a Darksider, it's going to be a little easier in a way because you can now access these. Yup.
He's gonna have to work on me.
Well, and that's good. I mean, that's sort of the central tenet of this game is that struggle, right? That what do you do? Do you give into the dark side and accept that power, or do you fight against it? So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Cool. All right. Well, what do you guys think? Do you have any other questions on morality or the use of force points or anything like that?
The only thing I'll say is that in the text earlier, you guys were talking about lightsaber skills and like why you would have them. Personally, it was part of my career path, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to take something that I can only easily take when I first create my character. So like I took one specialization in lightsabers. I don't know if that's an issue or not.
So here's the thing. We aren't going to start out with lightsabers. You will have the opportunity to gain some training in lightsabers if you wish to. But remember that lightsabers are obviously rare. They're very special. They typically they are the weapon of the Jedi or of a Sith. Ardyn Lynn doesn't have a lightsaber. Because, really, in theory, because she's got a big old robot arm. And I think she's got a big, nasty sword. But, Darth Vader has a lightsaber. And rumors are that maybe the Emperor has one too. But who's ever seen that, right? So, So what I would say, and what I told Jose was, because he was thinking about doing that too, and I'm like, honestly, you're not going to start out the game with a lightsaber. You're probably not going to have one that quickly. So it may be worth taking the points that you were putting into lightsaber and putting them into another skill that you might use more often. But you don't have to. If you do want to stick with lightsaber training, though, you'll want to have a reason for why you got that training, because that's very different than training with like a melee weapon, specifically a lightsaber. So,
well, the only thing I would say is that my particular specialization, the reason why it comes with it is because it's a Makashi duelist, so it's basically a duelist with lightsabers. It's kind of the whole class. But when they describe it narratively, the fighting style is actually based a lot on misdirection and emotional like manipulation through speaking and gestures while doing it, and looking like it's not difficult for you at all and like you never break a sweat. That's what it being do. So I just figured maybe my talent in lightsaber is just not so much in the actual use of the lightsaber, but in that other staying cool stuff, which is imperative to my style when I do learn one down the road.
Yeah.
So that was my justification originally.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine to do that. So yeah, that's another thing. Generally, and it's up to the GM how they want to do this, but usually you don't start out with lightsabers in a Force and Destiny campaign, only because they're exceedingly rare. There would be a bounty on lightsabers just as much as there would be on Force users.
But ancient swords use the same skills, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think technically in the book it says ancient swords use the lightsaber skill.
I think the way that like Rory's class, the Makashi duelist, is think of like the river dancing guy from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The very flare type of thing, and it's more of a style. And they use their swords. The ancient sword, it's really weak actually. I mean, it's not like a lightsaber. It's like a weak melee weapon. It just uses the lightsaber skill to fight. It's not even like a training sword equivalent. It's like an old ancient way of fighting, from what I understand.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so mechanically, I don't think it's as good as like a vibro sword, for example.
No, it does like +2. It does brawn +2 damage, so it's really weak.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For a thing.
Yep.
I'll be using agility under the lightsaber thing because of one of my talents.
Yep.
Like shortly, but yeah, still that's pretty weak. Agility +2 is
right. Yeah, and one thing to note too with this system is that it takes a lot more experience points to start to become powerful, because you've got obviously whatever you normally spend your experience points on, skills and talents, but then force powers and all their upgrades and whatever cost additional XP. So I'll probably give out a little bit more experience points than I would otherwise, just because I want you guys to be able to start accessing force powers a little bit sooner than you otherwise would. And I think that it would make sense in this case because you will also have training. And that's another thing to note, is that you guys, any force powers that you guys use cost 5 XP less, because we're using the mentor rules in this. So your force powers cost less because you have a mentor to help train you.
Force powers. Okay, so I didn't know that, so I probably have some points. Oh, force powers. So that's sense.
Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
and does that include upgrades as well?
Yeah.
Do upgrades cost 5 less as well?
Yeah, all force powers with upgrades and whatever cost 5 less. Yep.
Okay, I have to give myself some points.
Not specifically force talents, but force powers.
I don't know which this is. I have. Oh, right. So not from the talent tree, but from the power.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So typically, what will happen in a game of Force and Destiny is your starting group, you either have access to a holocron, which then has a couple of skills that would essentially be career skills for you, because you're learning these specific skills. A mentor, which obviously there's a mentor, and then they can help you learn the Force a little easier, or a starship, which means you can get around. Now, you guys are on a starship already, so you kind of get a double benefit there, but you're Darksiders, so there's that. Cool. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. Did you guys have any other questions about your characters, about backgrounds, morality, anything like that? All right. If not, I think maybe what we'll do then is we'll go ahead and jump into a little bit of the RP. What I'll have you guys do, if you don't mind, this will be very much sort of a improvisational thing. And again, the goal is really to try to come up with that moment that you first used your force powers and how you got caught. So what I'll do is we'll set up the scene together. You guys will kind of let me know maybe any NPCs or whoever would be around at the time. And then I will effectively take control of those NPCs and sort of weave a little bit of a story to kind of make sense. So you guys good with that? Cool. 2, 3, 4, 5. Who does anybody want to go first? No. Who are you all scared to improv? Yeah.
I'll go first.
I'll go first.
Oh, never mind.
Rory. No, Rory.
I'm not afraid to improv, but she's not fleshed out. I'm not ready.
All right. Yeah, I'll go first. It's fine. I have him pretty fleshed out, so I feel a little comfortable with him.
Cool. All right. So if you don't mind, Rory, kind of what was the concept that you had in mind for when Wengo would have sort of first drawn on his power in a way that probably was visible?
Visible, like,
as in some, he might have been using the Force a little more subtly where he wouldn't have necessarily been caught, but what do you think would be a situation, the first time where he used his force powers and somebody that maybe shouldn't have known does know or sees him?
I would actually say, okay, so this is the concept that I had in mind. I hope it's not too coincidental. So he was using his force powers constantly in the mine. It's how he was finding things. He just didn't even realize it. But when he was being traded to someone else, he was on a Hut trading ship.
Okay.
And he was chained to a bunch of other slaves. Like each one had the chain going to one wrist and so on, so on, so on.
Yeah.
And that trading vessel was basically hit by somebody. And I don't know, in my head, it was Ardyn Lynn, was taking the ship, but it could have been somebody else before meeting Ardyn Lynn or something like that. But basically what happened is when they went to go into the slave hold, I had freed myself, but not from the chains. The chain still had the hands of 6 other slaves attached to it, whom I killed to cut their hands off so I could move around without being chained. But I don't even really have a clear recollection of how that all happened. It's fuzzy to me.
Okay, cool. All right, I think I can work with that. So all right, so again, what we'll do, so I'm gonna just sort of totally like make this up on the fly. Let me check one thing here. I'm gonna grab one of my handy dandy adversary cards here. For those watching at home, we are using Roll20. So normally what I would do is have these guys in Roll20 and we would do everything there. But adversary cards can be real great. So, especially if you're playing this game live, I would get them because they're very helpful. All right, so you are currently in a situation right now where, the slave ship is kind of going along, right? And you guys are heading, maybe you're heading out to, another destination in the Outer Rim. You were going to be sent to work somewhere in Hut space, probably in another mine. And I think what happened was the entire voyage, the captain of the ship is exceedingly nervous. This captain was a nasty piece of work to begin with, but he keeps seeing ill omens everywhere, right? And he feels like this voyage is cursed. And then sure enough, as he's, kind of maybe a day out from his destination, the ship is attacked. And he thinks that it's pirates. And so you're hearing, over the comms, everybody get back into the slave holds. And you got some of the, the enforcers, they come in and they're like, pushing you guys back in with their force pikes or whatever. And then all of a sudden you feel the ship rock, right? And you as it's been hit by something, and the guard that was kind of pushing you in, sort of falls and stumbles kind of into you and trips, and this big, weapon that he's got kind of like is sort of right there, in your view. You could probably grab it if you wanted to. But you recognize that you might have an opportunity to do something here if you want to. So what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, I would grab his weapon in that moment.
Yep. And
I would be first, like, I don't know if it would be all at the same time or not, but it'd be immensely targeting him. I'd see his weapon and I would want to pick it up and I would want to kill this person.
Okay. And so you do, you're able to pick up the weapon, but you realize that it's difficult because you've got, these other slaves attached to you and they're trying to run, right? They're trying to, and so you kind of struggle, and maybe you pull the closest one who, the one right next to you, you kind of yank him, and he sort of falls down, and you sort of tumble as well, but you manage to kind of grapple this weapon out of the guard's hand. And describe to me, like, sort of how you end up kind of killing this guard with his own weapon.
So I think, in typical fashion, they're kind of wearing this silly armor that doesn't really, like, it more encumbers the guard than anything else. And whereas when I kind of tumble, I'm able to recover quickly. He doesn't fall, but he's just not able to really get his feet under him. And so I would try to take the opportunity to hamstring. Essentially, I would want to cut out the back of his legs deep and as hard as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe what happens is you kind of like swing this like pike thing around that he's got, and cut right the back of his legs, and he falls down screaming, right, and then like maybe the butt of the thing right into his face to knock him out. But at this point, the rest of the slaves, they start to panic because you just killed a guard. And they're like, oh no, they're going to retaliate now. Plus we got pirates, and they're trying to like, and you start to kind of get pulled back as it's basically 5 other guards or not guards, slaves are sort of pulling you back. And so what are you going to do? You still have access to this weapon.
Yeah. I first, I'm just going to kind of like tug of war style, try to grab the chain, like with my free hand as well, and pull back and, just kind of say, stop, you fools. You have an opportunity. Get a grip. We need to work together.
Interesting. Okay. I think I am going to have you do a roll on this one, just because I want to have a couple of rolls here, somewhat inconsequential. What we're going to do is I'm going to have you make probably, you could either do charm, you could do leadership. Let's see what else you could do here. I would say either charm or leadership. Possibly.
I think leadership makes sense. He's attempting to kind of act as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. What I am going to do, this isn't going to be too difficult because I feel like maybe you have established yourself in the past as pretty strong-willed. But I am going to add 1 setback dice because they're really scared, and the ship is being just pummeled. So it's just going to be against 1 purple, but we're going to use 1 1 black dice as well. Okay. And whenever you're ready, you can roll that. Okay, so we've got 2 failures, but we've got 3 advantages. Okay, so
this is perfect for what I have in mind.
Okay, what do you have in mind?
Well, I'm not actually. I always am so bad at how am allowed to use advantages. But basically, if I failed, that's why the next part of the narrative happened. I'm going to immediately stab the first. Like I want, whether it's with this or another roll or whatever. But I want to immediately stab the one closest to me, and say, just immediately, like, do you hear me? Like, like I don't. Whatever I got to do to make the point to these people, they're not getting it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, you're trying to rally them and you don't, just the fear of everything happening. You're not able to. Yeah. And so you kind of say, all right, fine. You jab, the guy, stick the first guy, and he, he looks at you like, what are you doing? Right. And he falls down, and the rest of the slaves are like, oh my God. What are you doing? But you would definitely at this point have the ability to heavily influence them with all that advantage. You've made a power move here, and you've got a weapon. You just showed you're willing to kill one of them. So, if you want to try to persuade them again, you certainly can.
Okay. Do you need to adjust anything, or?
What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to give you 2 boost dice on that. Everything else is the same. Go for it. We aren't going to use dark and light side points, the destiny pool, right now, just because it's not sort of a real game, but I might do it at some point, so we'll see. Wow. Well, so you still fail. I think that their fear is just gripping them, like they just can't get over this. But yeah, you've got something pretty good that comes out of this whole situation. Did you have an idea for how you wanted to use that 5, 1, 2, 3? Is it 4 advantage? 4 advantage still.
Yes. So what do I want to use the advantage for? So maybe something can happen, and then like something could come over the loudspeaker or something like that. Basically, I think the next step in my path should be revealed to me, and I think maybe it has to do with the guard. Like something over the loudspeaker says to the guard that they think is still alive. Like, will you get over here, or is there something wrong with the fingerprint scanner? Like, which tells me that the door is operated by fingerprints, and I'm going, which will then I'm going to want to cut this guy's hand off so I can use it to escape, like, and use it to open the doors and such.
Okay, yeah, I think that you can do that. But I also think that you've still got those guys that are trying to, they're actively trying to pull you at this point. So I would say you could probably use the rest, the other advantage there to maybe like use this to kind of hack off part of the chain so that maybe it's just you and like, the other slave are connected at this point, the one that's dead, but the other, maybe you could do that, or you could try something else if you want.
Well, I mean, so in what I wrote, I kind of, to go with that, my next step, now that I failed to influence them twice, was quite honestly to kill the rest of them.
Okay.
Because the image in my head is that I'm dragging this chain kind of along with me.
Okay, cool. So I think that makes sense then. So I think, then what would happen is that advantage, we'll say, is used to, yes, you hear that over the loudspeaker, but they also kind of hear it, and they're all distracted at this point. And so you can kind of just go in and do your thing. So if you want to give me a little bit of a description of like what that would look like, this sort of carnage.
Yeah, I feel like I'm disappointed. I'm not eager to do damage to other people necessarily. Like ones that are keeping me enslaved, sure, that's one thing. But other random people that are being kept enslaved, no, that's not my goal. But I kind of am just looking at the weapon. I'm seeing these people just frantically running around. There's no hope of getting out of here attached to these people. They're just weights holding me down. So I just kind of, and I mean, it's been years fighting in the pits. So this is not, having a weapon is like the most luxury I've had in years. So I feel like he just kind of like, he swipes at a thigh, he slashes across another person's throat, he jabs down on another one, and overall there's probably like 4 people left. So it's just like swipe, stab, swipe, swipe, and they just kind of drop. And then the next thing I feel like you would see, because I don't want to, like, I don't think it would be too gruesome. I just think like the screen would kind of swipe and there'd be some blood, and I would kind of be like pulling this chain along that I can't get off of my wrist at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that happens. And I think as you kind of get up to the, the guard who you took the weapon, and you kind of like go to cut his hand off, you do so. But as you kind of, and decapitate his hand, because that's a thing in Star Wars. If you didn't know that, people lose hands all the time. The ship rocks again. And you kind of tumble a little bit, and you fall. I think at this point, the weapon maybe falls out of your hand, because in fact, what you're reaching for this hand that you've taken off, and you can now, the lights start to flicker, and you hear the alarm klaxons, and then you hear that sort of robotic voice, hull compromised. Get to seek immediate safety. Blast doors will be closing, momentarily, that kind of thing.
And the funny thing is, I was just getting overly confident. Like, things had just gone fairly well for me. And when the weapon drops to the ground, you hear clank, clank, and the ship kind of moves, in space. The weapon rolls and like goes into a vent and down. And I'm just like, idiot, you got so confident. You're such a fool.
Yeah, right. Oh man. But what do you do? Because you can make it out that door if you do.
Yeah. I'm pissed, but I'll just kind of like slam my hand on the ground. I'm like take off running with the chain and this hand. I do have the hand, right? I was able to do that. Okay, so I have the hand and the chain. I'm just running towards that last door.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So you make it out of this room, and you're basically in like a a little corridor that's going to lead into the cargo bay. And then beyond the cargo bay, I mean, there would be like probably there might be some escape pods. There would definitely be a lot of cargo in here, but I think probably this cargo bay was mostly taken up with like cages where they would house, they would have slaves, because that's what this vessel is. And you would definitely see just a scene of chaos. Some of the cages had fallen over, and the slaves are still inside. You see the slavers trying to kind of get order and figure out what's going on here. And you again, the lights are all sort of blue and flashing, and you hear wah, 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 wah. What are you going to try to do? What is your ultimate goal here?
My ultimate goal here, I think, I'm not a space traveler, so I don't really know how these things work, which is convenient because I, in real life, am also not a space traveler.
What?
So,
I am. I don't know if anybody knew that.
Space Force! Space Force, sorry.
I think my main thing is I have my chain kind of like a hose, like wrapped up and like holding it in one hand because I'm trying to not make noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would try to, it's always worked for me to kind of try to just clear my mind and let whatever the next thing that jumps into my head be the thing that I follow.
Okay.
And I basically am looking at these ships and I figure to myself, one of them, like a bunch of them, are probably going to go to their death for no reason and I don't know anything about it. But at least one of them is probably going to go somewhere safer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to sense which one that might be. And my ultimate goal will then be to try to basically stow away, like in whatever kind of ship it is. Some ships are bigger, so it'd be easier to do, and some ships are smaller, but whatever it is, that's what I'm going to try to do.
Okay, cool. So I think then what happens is do you have the sense power, just out of curiosity?
I do, but
okay.
It doesn't, like mechanically, it doesn't technically relate to this. It really wouldn't be used.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to know that was the one you took. Okay. So I do also sometimes play a little bit fast and loose with force powers when I think it makes sense narratively. And so in this case, I think what happens is just instinctually, right? You reach out with your instincts, trying to figure out where maybe the most advantageous position is. And you sense just something that you've never sensed before. You sense this really sort of dark, foreboding presence. And you've in your past, you've known sort of when like the slave masters are coming. You could just almost have like this sixth sense about you. But this is different, right? This is something menacing. This is something scary. And I think what would happen is you realize that at the far end of the cargo bay where the little sort of docking port would be or whatever, where it would, be able to load cargo, you feel this, you sort of hear this, and then, that kind of shudders the ship a little bit as probably like something is connecting. And then you hear over the loudspeakers, they're breaching the ship. It looks like it's Imperials. Quick, get the slaves, under control and get them in something like, get them in the pods. We're going to jettison. So like basically the slaver is saying, just send the slaves out into an escape pod out into space because we don't want to be caught with a bunch of slaves. And so you see these guys running around, and in the chaos, you see basically this like white and then orange thing as it looks like some kind of arc welder is cutting through the hull of the ship. And then you hear this poof, and you see a big piece of the hull kind of fly into the room. And all you see is this big metal fist that looks like it maybe like punched it in. And immediately in steps this woman with a giant sort of metallic fist. And amidst, and then, behind her, it looks like they're, like a squad of stormtroopers. And the stormtroopers immediately start to, fan out, and they, hold their blasters up. She looks around for a minute, and in the smoke and the chaos or whatever, and then she immediately sort of turns and sees you, Wengo. And I think it would be this sort of moment where like everything kind of goes silent for a minute, and everything sort of slows down, and your gazes kind of like lock onto each other, and you would see her look at you, and she just sort of cocks her head a little bit and squints her eyes like, huh. And you can't hear, but you see she mouths something, and you start seeing the stormtroopers just like firing at the slavers and slaves alike. They don't care. And she's going to make her way directly towards you. What would you do?
So actually, I think, yeah, you know what? I think this is kind of cool. So I have 1 force point because I have a force rating of 1, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now I actually am going to use sense for its mechanical purpose.
Okay, great.
I can spend 1 force point, and, well, I don't know if I hope you'll let me stretch the mechanics of this. Technically, I'm supposed to be engaged with them. I don't know if that means in combat necessarily, but I'm looking at this person, so to me, I'm engaged with this person.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend this force point to sense their complete emotional, all the things they're feeling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That literally is referring to the range band. So mechanically we can make it work so that as she gets you basically wait until she gets close, like real close to you.
Right.
Maybe like frighteningly close. And
you know what though? I do have control.
You have the control upgrade?
Oh yeah, but that just increases the difficulty pool by 1. It doesn't do anything for range band.
Okay. All right, so let me go to sense here. What did they put it all the way at the back? Probably. Okay. All right, great. Ongoing command. You used the control upgrade on the right-hand side.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, yes. So spend. All right, so then do this. Go ahead and do you have to commit it? It looks like spend so you got to roll to see if you can do it. Okay. Yeah. So just roll a single force dice for me.
Is it me, or is it the opponent? Because it says upgrades the difficulty pool by 1.
So they would try to resist. But first, I want you to roll a point just to see if the force is with you or not.
All right. I don't know. I'm going to roll it from the force power spot. I hope I have everything set up correctly so that works. But let's see.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did that work? No.
No. What you can do, just in your dice pool at the very top, just click the thing up, the force dice up to 1.
Oh, force dice. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Force dice.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the white one in the middle, right? That's
Yep.
Force dice.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So that's good actually, because
29 morality.
What we'll say then is, I think for narrative purposes, I'm not going to make you roll an opposed check here. We're just going to say that you can use that. So you don't have to spend strain, because you've been sort of maybe wittingly or unwittingly drawing on using your anger, using your fear, to draw on the dark side of the force.
That's what the mind's taught me.
Yeah.
To use that stuff. Like that's how he looks at it. Like, so yeah, that's why that's how I justify him being 29. He's learned that brutality can be good.
Nice. All right. And so, yeah, what happens is you kind of, with this just sort of force of will and in your fear and your anger, you kind of like reach out with the force and kind of sense her emotional state. And she seems, at first, you get like a split second before she just like slams shut any kind of mental power that you would have, but for a minute you get the sense that she is calm but also surprised. She did not expect to find someone here that was so sort of strong in the dark side of the force. And so you feel that sort of mental connection just and kind of force you out. And she reaches over to you and she grabs you with this big metal hand by your shirt, right? And she lifts you up in the air and you know, kind of looks at you, and she says, I sense the dark side in you. It is strong with you. You have much anger and much fear. Would you consider training that power, growing that power, serving the Emperor with that power, young Twi'lek?
Does she let me go, or is she still holding me?
Still holding you.
I will. Yes, the answer is yes. But he kind of like he's trying to get he's trying to show some deference. So he's kind of like trying to nod his head, like do whatever is customary from where he's from. Maybe he puts his like fist over his chest and he says, "With everything I am," and he just kind of like hang his head like this, and hope she doesn't rip his head off.
And then she hands you like a small vibroblade, and she says, good. Then you will make it out of here alive. She says, but we do have something that we must take care of. Now come with me. And she'll put you down. And she says, bring me to where the captain will be hiding. And this will just be narrative from this point on, but basically what would happen is she'll ask you to lead, find the captain. And when you finally find the captain, she'll ask you to kill him. Like, she'll basically get him into a submissive, like where he can't do anything. And then she'll say, kill him.
I mean, my response will be more akin to like, are you sure you want to let me do it?
And she says, she kind of looks to you for a minute, and she says, is that your question? You hesitate because you think you're not worthy? And
I'm just like kind of thinking like, well, I don't think I'd say this, but in my head I'd be thinking like, maybe, like, don't you want the pleasure? Like, he's a slaver. He's disgusting. He's like, there's nothing better than killing a slaver.
And I think she would sense your mood, maybe not the exact tone of what you were thinking, but she would maybe see the slave brand on you, and she knows this is a slave ship, and she says, I would think a slave would jump at the chance to kill one such as him. You have that chance if you'll take it.
And so, yeah, I would, like, as soon as she says that, I want her to think that I'm, like, now I'm to the point where I don't want to turn away a gift. You know what I mean? Like, when someone says I want to seem rude that way. So, like, a little bit of the chain will kind of get, like, released out of my hand, and I'm just going to, like, swing the hand all the way back and try to bring it down, like, right on his head.
Nice. Like, with the chain? Yeah, you kind of
whack. Yeah, like, I imagine it's like a big, thick, heavy chain.
Yep.
Like, so it wouldn't take much strength to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that you would have to do that a few times because, because while, yes, it's a heavy chain, you just, and I think maybe what happens is like, you don't realize it, but like, you just keep doing it over and over and over. And it takes a moment, and then you stop and you realize the chain is covered in blood. You have blood all over you. There's just this mess on the floor in front of you. And Ardyn was just standing there the whole time, just kind of taking this in. And then the stormtroopers come in and they say, Commander, the ship has been disabled. It seems, the captain is dead. What should we do? And she says, let us return to our ship. We will be bringing this one with it, and then we will scuttle the ship. And as you're walking through the rest of the ship, that there are still slaves on the ship. They didn't kill everybody. They just what they did was they killed the slavers. And they said, did you acquire the cargo we were looking for, Captain or Sergeant? And you see, the stormtrooper with a pauldron on him. He says, yes, ma'am. Yes, we did. We acquired what you were looking for. Very good, very good. And then she looks to you and she says, "What is your name, young Twi'lek?"
Wango.
She says, "Wango. My name is Ardyn Lynn. I think you will be of much value to me, and I think you will find that we can learn a lot from each other. Please come with me. Board the Chimera, and your destiny will change forever."
And with a light heart, he does.
Boom. Cool. All right. Prologue 1 done. Sweet. So yeah, so that's sort of the gist of what we'll do is kind of more improv. We may do dice rolls, we may not, just depending on what you want to do. But do definitely try to bring whatever force powers or talents, if you don't have a force power, that you have into play. You may or may not need to actually use a force point, but we will we'll do sort of a narrative kind of thing to show you using the force. Because the way I kind of picture it is, even if you maybe you don't have a force power, occasionally, especially in times of distress, people will draw on the force and be able to do things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So thank you, Rory, for doing that.
Thank you.
What I was thinking we could do is we could jump to one more person, or if you guys want to take a short break first, we can do that. Do you have a preference either way? All right, I'm going to assume then that we're good for a little bit. So
Yeah,
who
one
wants to
more
go
maybe,
next?
then we could do a quick break.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I finally have beer this time, so I'm going to go get one after this.
I will actually be back in 1 second, though. I just have to grab my charger wire.
Yeah, no worries. All right, who's the next brave soul?
I'll go.
All right, cool. All right, so Czar, what is the sort of the concept that you have for where we would start?
So I imagine, he's in his early 20s. You kind of see, like, if it's a Star Wars movie or an episode, you see kind of like the panning down to Dathomir, the planet, and he's with the Night Brothers, who are all Zabraks, who are, where Darth Maul comes from. All the Zabraks are force sensitive. They're subservient to the Night Sisters, but Czar is a human, and his family, their ship crashed there. He survived, and now he's like the slaves to the slaves. So the Night Brothers, they use him to do like their little errands and things like that. So they've abused him and mistreated him for, I would say, about a decade now.
Okay.
And I imagine that there's a scene where there's like an Imperial shuttle or something coming down to the planet, and it draws the attention of the Night Brothers, who leave their like base camp to go meet this shuttle, and they leave back Czar to tend to the camp, and there's one Night Brother who remains there, and it's Czar's like kind of master, and he had a set of rapiers that were very well ornate, and the master's kind of like sleeping because he doesn't expect Czar to do anything, and Czar takes his opportunity to kind of like go and grab these rapiers and make his escape.
Okay, and I think that one thing that Czar would have realized is that this sort of tribe or whatever that you're with, it's very small. Like there's very, very few people on here, and they claim to be some of the original Night Sisters and Night Brothers. But as you guys have sort of traveled Dathomir with these guys, you realize like they might be the last of them, or if they're not, you don't know. So there's very few left. And yeah, I think what's happening is as the shuttle, this Imperial shuttle, is coming down. So Jose, you noticed the images are all different. That's because somebody turned off their camera. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Rory or not. I think he just covered his. So, oh, you did, yeah.
It was Jose.
See, so that's why we don't want to do that, but that's okay. So let me see if I can fix it here. But bottom line, what ended up happening was, actually, if you turn it off and turn it back on again, see if that works. I might restart it. No, bummer. Oh well, that's all right. We'll fix it later. But so Zar, as the shuttle is coming down, and you actually see a few shuttles coming down, you again sense this just incredibly dark, dangerous presence. And you've sensed something like this before, right? In the presence of the Night Brothers and the Night Sisters, and throughout Dathomir, there have been certain points on the planet that just seem to resonate with this kind of dark energy. But those were sacred places, right? Those were places of immense power. The fact that you can feel something like this emanating from one of those ships definitely gives you pause. And so as you run in and you you kind of like grab your rapiers and you come out, your master begins to awaken because he starts to sense something as well. And I think that you would be kind of sneaking back out at this point, rapiers in hand. But it's difficult to focus on your task at hand because you just this sense, something bad is going to happen. So what will you do? You will be able to get the drop on your master if you want.
Yeah, he's been playing his escape for a long time, and he knows how these Night Brothers are. He's going to try to take this guy out.
Okay, absolutely. So I'm not going to make you roll or anything because he's completely distracted by this thing coming down. In fact, you see him kind of looking up at the shuttle, and he starts to mutter. And so if you want, go ahead and describe to me kind of like what you would do to take him out.
So he would, I assume the guy's like looking at the shuttles. Yep. And Zar would quickly just run up behind him, and he would grab him by the head, and he would shove the rapier through his neck. And he would whisper in his ear, "You have trained me well, master, but it is time for me to finish what you've started." And then he just like rip the rapier out, and he'd have a second one, and he would plunge it through his chest, and then he'd like kind of kick him so that he slumps forward, wounded or lifeless, as he had one rapier shoved through his neck and one rapier shoved through his chest.
Oh, wow. And I think as he sort of, gurgles and, in his death throes or whatever, and, I imagine maybe he's sort of like, as he's falling, he kind of turns to you and lets out this sort of rasp. "You do not know the powers that you are about to experience. Your destiny will be changed forever." And then he dies. And I feel like this might be a bit of an ominous thing because when the Night Brothers talk about destiny, like they're not messing around, right? Like they seem to have this knowledge. They seem to be tapped into the Force in a way that maybe you don't fully understand yet. But regardless, he's basically told you something crazy is going to go down. And you realize that the rest of your sort of tribe at this point, they're kind of spreading out and fading into because they anticipate that there's going to be some kind of Imperial assault here. And they are planning to either run or to create an ambush. How would you react as you see the two shuttles are actually actively landing at this point?
I think he would know that the Night Brothers don't want the Empire here. Yep. He also knows that Dathomir is a very lifeless planet. Mm-hmm. Like, so by himself, he can't survive. So he would try to, I would imagine he spent a lot of times in the woods by himself because he was kind of, he had no friends. So he would try to find a rapid path to the shuttles and try to alert them to the Night Brothers' presence.
Okay, fantastic. So then, as you kind of are, sneaking your way through, trying to find to kind of alert them to the presence, I feel like it's almost as if time slows down a little bit, and you see the shuttle land, you see the little landing ramp come down, and you see a few squads of those white armored stormtroopers come out, and then behind them you see, wait for it, this figure, large in black armor from head to toe, come out, and he is the source of this intense dark energy. And behind him is this woman, unlike anything you've ever seen before. She is, again, this metal hand, seems to be a cybernetic being, and together they just emanate this dark force energy. And you can see him sort of turn to her, and he says something, gives her this command, and she, she kind of nods her head slowly, and then she starts like motioning for a squad of stormtroopers, and she starts leading one squadron out. And you see this figure, and he's just looking around, and that this guy is unlike anything you've ever experienced before. He is incredibly dangerous.
So if I may, I would like to, like, as a child before my parents crashed here, I'd like to think that they were imperialists.
Okay.
And they spoke highly of the Empire and things like that. So my guy would have a nostalgic, like, this is the story of my parents would tell me before we crashed here, in this horrible place. So I imagine I see them off in the distance, and he would start running, and he'd be like, "They're here! They're here! They're hiding in the trees! The Night Brothers!" And I would try to run towards the stormtroopers, warning them, pointing.
Okay, and I think probably what's happening is you're starting to run towards you're starting to run towards the main squad there, and what ends up happening is I think you, from out of nowhere, all of a sudden you're like, poof, and you get hit on the side of the head, and you don't pass out, but you kind of tumble to the ground, right? And you look up and you see just like this stormtrooper standing over you, with his rifle up, and as your kind of blades fall to the ground, you can hear him say, "We found one of the locals. Do we execute him?" And as you look over, and do we execute him? It's like, what? I've heard the Empire, they're supposed to be so great. Like, what's going on here? And you hear this voice say, "No, not yet. Perhaps he can be of use to us. He can lead us to what it is that we seek." And they say, "Very well, very well. Stand up, scum." And now it's not the butt of his rifle anymore, but the barrel of his rifle is pointed at you.
"You fools! They're everywhere! The Night Brothers is an ambush!"
And the woman kind of looks to you, and she says, "The Night Brothers, huh? I was told that their kind was eradicated. No matter, though. Lord Vader will take care of them. But we seek an item of great power, one perhaps you can help us find." And she goes on to describe this artifact that is hidden in this temple. And this is a very sacred temple on Dathomir, right? One that where I think the history of the Night Brothers and Sisters was held. And I think a long time ago it was not a long time ago, a little while ago, it was ransacked by the Empire. But this is where they went to take the remaining artifacts that the Empire didn't find. So this is a very, very like important place. She doesn't know where it is, but she knows of it, and she's asking you to lead her there.
I assume I would have been like, if they did a pilgrimage, I wouldn't have been allowed inside of it, but I would have been like taken to their base camp.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't care what you do. I hope this place burns to the ground. I hate these bastards. I'll take you wherever you wish, so long as you leave me from this desolate place.
She says, we shall see. Lead on. And so as you would kind of lead her on, by the way, what is your sort of force power or force talent? Or what do you anticipate it to be?
No force powers yet. He's just he's very muscular because of all the like physical labor that he's had to endure. So he's very brawny, very strong, and very good. He's observed the Night Brothers fighting, so he knows how to wield like a melee weapon, not lightsabers or anything, but like the rapiers. He would know how to use them.
Okay. Do you have any force talents that you took yet, or no?
Nope.
Okay. No problem. So I think as you guys are traveling along, and
I will say that the aggressor, what he will come to find out is like a rage builds up in him, and their talent is to like scare, and like people would need to do a fear check around them because they're scary.
Okay, absolutely. And so I think what happens in this case is you're walking along, and she can all of a sudden. This woman is like right up next to you, right? And she's walking along beside you, where before she was behind you watching as you were leading. And she says, I sense great anger, great sadness in you as well. Have you been kept here as a slave?
They killed my parents. They kept me here alone, used me as a tool for their labor at their disposal. I was less than a pig in their eyes. I hate everything about this place and those people.
And she says, and if you could exact revenge upon them, would you do so?
I already slit the swine's throat that kept me under his heel so many years, and I plan to desecrate the bodies of every other person in the tribe.
She says, good, very good. I have a feeling you will have that chance sooner than you imagine. Now let us go into this temple. Let's find this artifact, and then we will make sure that you have the chance to spill as much blood as you wish.
And he would like grab his rapiers, and he would seem very determined at that.
Nice. And I think what would happen is you guys would eventually come to this, it's like a cave, and like this is the sacred site, right? And this place is just brimming with dark side energy. And you don't maybe necessarily know that it's brimming with dark side energy, but you just know that it's a strong negative force, right? And so and she is there, and she stands for a moment and waits, and then she says, yes, this must be what Lord Vader sensed. This is good. This is good. And she looks over to you again, and she says, what is your name, human?
My name is Zar.
Zar. I am Ardyn Lynn, hand to the Emperor. Come with me, lead me in, and together we will find this artifact, and I will make sure that you will grow in power. Use that anger and rage that you have to fuel you to become more powerful than you can imagine. Does that sound appealing to you?
He would kind of like look down and reach into his pocket, and he would say, my parents, before they passed, they told me this day would come. They left me this. And he would pull out a little token, and it's an Imperial insignia. And he would say, I am sworn to follow you wherever you might take me.
And she says, very good. And so you would make your way down into this temple, and almost as if the two of you are guided by some force. You don't even necessarily know what it is, but it's you're just traveling along as if you know exactly where to go, and you get to where it was sort of this cave structure. Now all of a sudden, as you go deeper and deeper, it seems as though there's more architecture, more man-made architecture, and you travel down, and then there's like glow bulbs and in the walls, and you can start to see like actual doors, and there's electricity down here. There's something humming, and you come to this, it looks like some sort of central location, and there's a computer bank, and there's like a big door, and on this door has like the ancient symbol of the Night Brothers and Night Sisters, and it's glowing with some sort of luminescent light. And Ardyn stands back, and she says to you, "Can you feel it? Can you feel the power emanating from inside?" And you would be able to.
Yeah, he would look like he's wallowing in it, like bathing in it. It feels. I do not feel weak any longer. I do not feel like a slave, but free for the first time.
And she says, "Good. Now, draw on that power, that rage that you have. Channel that energy into the door. I will help you. Together, we will find the secrets that this place holds." And so what I'll have you do, if you will, is go ahead and roll a force dice for me.
Okay. All right.
Popo are coming. All right. And are you what is your did it not show up? That's weird. Let's try that again. Oh, let me see. There we go. Okay. Good. So, is your morality below 30?
No, it's 50.
Okay. So then in this case, you can feel that dark energy, but you also feel like this is intense. This is like this great river almost like washing over you. And she says, "Reach out to it, channel it, focus on it, and push it into the door." And you kind of see she's doing the same thing. You almost can sense this energy kind of pulling into her, and then. So if you want, we'll just say that we flip a dark side point because we don't have to. If you want to draw on that, otherwise you can not do it. Yeah.
No, he wants to use it.
Right.
Yeah, you'd see him kind of like dig his feet into the ground, and he'd start like screaming at the door at the top of his lungs in a rage.
Perfect. Okay, and so as the two of you are sort of channeling this, and you feel like this incredible sense of power, I probably would have given you an extra die because I think this is basically a dark side nexus. I'll have to look up the rules for that because I don't exactly remember if it gives you another dice or just another force point. But anyway, there's more power here than you would imagine, and together you guys channel, and you start to see the green and blue luminescent light like turn red, and it's solid. It's no longer pulsing, and then these great big like stone doors kind of, and this sort of dust comes out, and beyond, and she just walks like right in. She just goes, and it's completely dark in there. And as this happens, just as she goes in and you kind of follow right behind her, you get this sense of movement. Like you're not sure if you sensed it, through the force or otherwise, but there's something in this room, and all of a sudden something comes lunging at you and the woman, and you have a split second to act before whatever this thing is going to be on it. It doesn't seem that this woman knows that it's there, or if she does, she doesn't seem to be doing anything about it.
I would attack it.
Okay. And so as you kind of lunge forward to attack this thing, you realize that this is a Dathomiri, right? This is a guardian of the temple. And as it gets close to you, it's got this like staff, and these are sort of the ritualistic staves of the people here, and they the rumors are that they're coated in these like barbs that have poison, so you don't want to get hit with one of these things. But if you want, I would say go ahead and make an attack roll for me. This is going to be against one. You can make a melee attack, I guess, because you're using your rapiers. Is that right?
Yeah, and it'll add 1 difficulty to the base because I'm using two-handed.
Okay. So in this case, what's going to happen is you're going to have 3 purple. I'm going to give you a setback dice because it's dark and you just kind of came, just barely became aware of this thing. But I'm also going to give you a boost dice because you seem to have, you're infused with this energy, and it seems to be almost guiding your actions. And so whenever you're ready, if you want to make an attack.
Sweet. Could I double aim?
Yes. So I will do that. I'll add 2 more
Okay.
boost dice there.
I'll roll. I'm good to roll?
Yep.
Come on, baby. Let's see here. Oop, let me try it again.
Yeah, seems like it's glitching today. I don't know.
Okay, let me try something.
Okay.
Let me see if it goes to my melee. I think did you activate the API for this game room? That's what
I thought it did. Is nobody else able to roll? Because I did it again on my other character sheet and it worked. But
you may have to restart the sandbox API thingy.
Okay.
Well,
Sometimes that happens.
Let me do.
Rory
this.
rolled.
What?
Well, sometimes it'll like crash and it'll say like restart sandbox if you go to API.
Yep, I'll do it. Restart API sandbox.
There we go. I rolled it.
Okay, you got it.
Now it worked.
Okay, fantastic.
So
Let me get back in the game here.
interesting results.
Did the dice? Yes, it did. Wow.
Like, I guess I had
Okay.
an upgrade on the red.
Why was there an upgrade? I didn't set one.
I don't think I don't know if it would matter because it would still be wash.
Oh, there was an upgrade. You know what? Go ahead and re-roll it.
Okay.
It wouldn't. Well, yeah, I mean it's cool to re-roll it, but it wouldn't actually matter, right? Because you would have ended up with 3 advantages and 1 triumph.
Yeah, it would
All right.
have ended up with 3 advantages.
I'm just.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's got a no problem. All right, so that's fine. So then, what we'll do in this case is, so you go to kind of slash at him with your rapiers, and he manages to kind of parry those blows in just like this flurry with his staff, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think you want to do with those advantages and that triumph?
Oof. Okay, so I wasn't able to hit him because he's like deflecting me and stuff.
Yep.
But I want to be able to disarm him.
Okay. I think you could do that with the 3 advantages. So, yeah, absolutely. Maybe like as you were kind of swinging with your rapiers or trying to slash or whatever, and he parries them, and then maybe you like, kind of come around and like kick it or something, and it knocks it out of his hand. You have that triumph. Can you think of something really cool that triumph would be able to do?
Is there a cliff? Like, is there like, in this place it opens up? I'm just imagining some stereotypical temple layouts. Like, there's this like, piece of earth in the middle. Then there's usually like a pit that goes really far down.
So I mean, it's hard to see. There's not a lot of light in here right now. Ardyn kind of just went in, and all you can really feel right now is this guy near you. But you sense that this is a large room. And the stories are that in here was this sort of pool, and the pool kind of was infused with this energy and might fuel the rituals of the Night Brothers and Sisters. So
Is there a stalactite nearby?
probably
Like I want to. Okay, so like I'd want to be able to position him to like I'm fighting him. He's backing up, and I get him to in front of a stalactite, and I disarm him, and I have him to where like I could kick him into the stalactite.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would work. And so I think what will happen is you'll kind of kick him, and he falls back, and he doesn't like get impaled or anything, but he falls back, and I think maybe what happens is you hear him like and he's like no, and then you kind of see, and Ardyn lights this like glow bulb behind her, right, and it illuminates the room in front of you, and you actually see that you're standing on this like raised dais, and probably a meter or two down is this pool, and he's kind of hanging on the end of it here, with one arm, and she comes over to you and she says, "Is you have done well. Is this a defender of this temple, this dark temple?"
It is. It's one of the Dark Brothers, or Night Brothers.
And then she says, "Then you must finish him. Now is your chance."
And he's just sitting there holding on, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm just gonna take my rapier and I'm gonna like grab his head with one arm, and I'm gonna just shove the rapier through like his mouth, through his body.
Nice. And I think he tries to move out of the way, but yeah, and then he just he lets go, and you kind of pull it out, and you hear this, and as it splashes, right, this great big pool of water comes shooting up, and there I feel like there's this big, like there's sort of some kind of like creature that's in this pool, this big tentacled thing, and all of a sudden it you can see like the body kind of up in the air, and then it goes and this big mouth with these teeth kind of eats this thing and sucks it down under the water. And you see at this point there is a dais off to the side, and on this dais it's holding this like wooden carved thing, and this is just some sort of artifact. And Ardyn looks to you and she says, "You have done well. Now we shall bring this back to my master. He has been looking for this, but you best not see him. He has been instructed to destroy everyone on this planet, and if he sees you, unfortunately, you will not fare well. But I have other plans for you. You go with my squad of stormtroopers. They will accompany you back to my ship. I will meet you on board, and I will help you to fulfill the destiny that your parents told you of."
And he would kind of like nod and say, "Kill every last one," and then he would walk away.
Good. And you would see her, last thing she does, she reaches into this grabs this artifact, kind of looks at it, holds it up. You can feel it emanating this power, and then she like puts it into this bag that she has, and brings it out. And yeah, that's sort of where the scene fades out, and that's that. So I think what we'll do is we'll take like a quick break, maybe like a 5-minute break, and then we will commence with the next prologue, if that works. Cool. All right. If you guys don't mind, try to leave your cameras on if you can. Just otherwise it'll switch everything. Thank you. All right. So we're back, and we are going to discover what Aveo's thing is, because Vado is also on the planet of Dathomir. And so I think a little ways away, you guys, you would have been in your sort of compound, and the last of the Night Sisters left on the planet would have been, you would have trained with them, you would have acted as a healer, and everybody has sensed that there's a great disturbance here. Something bad is happening, and one of the Dathomirian warriors kind of comes into the village and is like, "We need you. We need healing. We're under attack. The Empire is here." And whoever it was that would have trained you would be like, "Okay, girl, it is time. Let us go. We must help our brothers defeat the Empire. Your talents will be needed."
But wait, he said the Empire's here, and we're gonna go towards the Empire. We've always been told that we're gonna go shy away from the Empire.
Yes, but our brothers will need healing to get away. We will not attack the Empire, but if we can heal our brothers enough to help retreat, perhaps we can evade them once again.
And go to the caves, right? Go to the caves like we've always said.
Like we've always done, yes.
Okay. Can I have a weapon this time? Because you always told me that I don't need one. And if we're going towards the Empire...
Yes, that is fine. And she pulls this knife, sort of ceremonial knife out, and she hands it over to you. She says, "Though your gifts, you will not need this, I suspect." And then she says, "Let's go." And as you guys kind of travel on, right, you get closer and closer, and a couple out of the surrounding area, a couple of the Night Brothers like kind of link up with you, and they say, the next town over has been hit. I think there are survivors." And they look to you, and he says, "The girl, she can save them, can she?" And the older woman says, yes, she will be able to save them. You must do your part. Create a distraction. And he said, of course. And so, at this point, like, you don't have a lot of weapons. There's, the fight is largely futile. But you run in to this village, and you see kind of on the outskirts is a squad of stormtroopers, firing off into the jungle. And you can see some Night Sisters kind of around the area trying to, and Night Brothers as well, doing the best they can to try to skirmish, get in, get out, whatever. And so the Night Brother leads you and your sort of master or whatever, right? You're the woman that you're training under, into the village, and brings you into this little hut that one of them was staying in. He said, "We brought him in here. Please, you must use your gifts. Please, you must save him. He is my brother." And you're presented with this dying Dathomirian, and you believe that with your gifts and with your training, you would likely be able to save him, but it will take a little bit of time.
Yeah, he's hurt real bad, but I think if we had some time, we definitely would be able to stabilize him, and then over time he'd heal like everybody does. It's what are those guys with the white guys there?
Don't worry about them. We will hold them off. Please do what you can for my brother.
Okay.
And would you use your healing powers?
Yeah, she would absolutely. Much different than what was said in the chat. Irene would use her powers, and she's going to.
Okay.
But yeah, she absolutely would do any of the powers that she has. So that the viewers know, she does have the start of the heal and harm force powers. So she doesn't know how she's able to do this, and nobody's ever even told her. But she just can touch people, and they tend to get a little bit better. And the more that she concentrates on it, the more that it seems to work. And it only lasts for so long. Then she has to take a little bit of a rest, and then she could do it again. But it's certainly it's certainly something that it's they keep telling her that it's her gift.
Okay, cool. And so if you can, Corey, go ahead and just roll a force dice for me. I just want to see if you're going to generate a light side or a dark side.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
He's been dubbed Dark Baby.
What? What did you say?
Your son has been dubbed Dark Baby. Give me just 1 second. Where did she go? Here it is. 1 force die. 1 and roll. What I get? I don't know.
Oh no, is it doing it again? Try it again one more time if you can.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was making the sheet at the same time we're doing this, so it's not.
No, that's okay. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right. So
okay.
Yeah. So I think in your fear, you realize that you can do this, but you're terrified because you don't want those guys with the guns to get in here. You're afraid, maybe you're going to get shot. So if you want, you can, it's going to be mentally taxing on you, but you can draw on this power using your fear to fuel it, and kind of channeling that into, the body of this guy. But as you do so, I think you would feel this like kind of, I don't know, maybe like your heart would start racing a little bit, and you would feel a heightened sense of anxiety even as you're healing him, and he would yell out, as his wounds are starting to knit, but they're being sort of fueled with this dark side energy, and I think that would cause more stress and more anxiety.
Absolutely. And she's looking at the wound as it starts to heal, and then it starts to degrade again, and it starts to heal, and it starts to degrade again, and it's not something that she's ever had happen to her before. And she is looking around, and she maybe from outside the tent that's maybe cracked a little bit in the window, she can see that some of those armored men, they're getting closer, and so she's trying to rush to get it done, and she looks up to her master, and she goes, "This is why. What do you see this?"
And the master turns and she says, "Yes, girl, yes, you. This is your gift. This is what you've been chosen to do." And then her words cut off as there's this like, and you kind of, the hut almost shakes a little bit, and you see the back of the head of like one of the Knight brothers like slam up against the window and kind of crack the glass a little bit, and then it falls down, and then you hear outside, and then the door breaks open to this hut, and you see in step this woman, dark hair, these just looking imposing, but the thing that you notice about her is her arm is silver. It's this metal cybernetic arm, and she looks over, and your master immediately looks to her with defiance, not with fear, and says, "Not again. This time we go out on our terms." And she starts to rush at this woman, and the woman just grabs her with this metal arm, picks her up, and just like, and breaks her neck and just throws her down on the ground. And she looks at you, and now the man who's recovering, and he says, no, and she says, "Girl, are you responsible for healing him?"
I was trying to. And she looks up at her, and she's definitely feeling a feeling that she's never felt before. Why couldn't I?
Why couldn't you heal him?
Well, look. And she goes over, she tries to do it again, and she forces all of her energy into it. And she starts to become angry that she's unable to heal him because she's not healing him about him at all. She's making him worse.
Yeah. And I think as this is happening, you would all of a sudden sense the woman get right up next to you, and sort of through the screaming of this guy, she says, "Good. Put him out of his misery. You are right. You cannot save him, but you can give him the death that he deserves. Do it."
But I'm meant to heal people.
And
she's looking down in shame away from the man.
And she would say, "Sometimes you are meant to heal and sometimes you are not. This is one of those moments where you are not. You must finish him. Show him mercy and finish him."
And she pulls out the blade that was given to her. I've never killed anything in my life, ma'am.
Says, "Well, now is the chance. Now is your time. Help your people. Do what you must do. And then I can assure that you will learn control over your gifts. You will be able to heal and help those that you care for."
But you killed my master.
She says, "I acted in self-defense. What should I have done?"
And she looks over to the woman that looks broken in half. And she looks back up to Ardyn Lynn, who I know as Ardyn Lynn, and looks at her arm and looks back at the woman and goes, "She was the village healer. Why did she say you're not going to take me again? Or was it not me?"
All right. And so at this point, Ardyn, you feel this intent, like she's looking directly into your eyes at this point, and she says to you, and you can feel this sort of energy just acting on you, and you're starting to want to do what this woman says, and she says,
Yeah.
"I will take you with me, and I will help you train your gift. I know the power that you have, and I can help you, but you must put this man out of his misery. Now, use your power or use your knife, I do not care, but end him." And you definitely want to do this. And just so you know, mechanically, she's using the influence power on you.
Okay, yeah. And she looks up to her. She looks back at her master, and then she looks down at the man. And a new emotion that she's almost never felt before, because everything's been very beautiful in her life. She feels anger, not over the fact that you hurt your hand when you were building something, not over the fact that you didn't win in a game. It feels like it's coming from within inside of her. And at this point, this is when she would switch from 30 to 29.
Mm-hmm.
And she puts her hand on the largest wound on this man and looks up at Ardyn Lynn as she's doing it and uses all of the energy that she has left in her body, and she uses harm instead of heal on this man.
Absolutely. And I think you would see almost as if there was this wisp of like black smoke that comes out of your hand and into his body, and he just starts.
And as he's screaming, she puts her hand over his mouth, the opposite hand, so she doesn't have to hear it.
Yep. Excellent. And then I think when he finally lets out his last breath, Ardyn puts her nice, her human hand on your shoulder, and she says, "You've done well. You've done very well. Will you come with me and let me help you learn the control that you so desperately need?
Well, you're the one that killed my master. Does that mean that you're going to become my master? And up until this point, when you first noticed Vado Bayo, her eyes were kind of bluish. But after using that, they've turned gray. And she looks up over those eyes and says, because I've always felt it in me. They always told me that I got too angry when I didn't win. Or when, well, mostly when I didn't win. They always said that was a bad thing. Is that?
And she says, no, that is not a bad thing. Anger is what makes you strong. Anger is what makes you powerful. Anger is what allows you to be the best that you can.
And she was sitting on her knees, like in front of the man, and very quickly just kind of pops to her feet and stares up to Ardyn Lynn, because she's a very small girl. She's only 16 years of age. And she looks up at her and goes, I've had a lot of dreams about a person that would tell me that it was okay for me to be angry. And I think that's you. And that's when she slumps over, and that was the last bit of energy that she has. And I don't know if Ardyn Lynn's gonna catch her or not, but she basically passes out in front of her towards Ardyn Lynn.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. And I think as you sort of black out, that's where the scene would go black as well. Awesome. Yeah. And that'll be interesting, especially because I feel like there'll be an interesting dynamic there with Kiga being, because you two will likely be the two youngest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People, in under Ardyn's thing. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. That was great.
And okay, just a question before you go on. How old is Kiga?
I don't know if we established or not. I think she was fairly young. I think she was like 14 or something.
14? Okay, yeah. So yeah, I would like to make her a year or two old, because she's not totally fleshed out, but like a year older than Kiga.
Yep.
But I got a plan for that. So.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. And so I think Chris and Jose, I think Chris was going to go next. Do you guys mind which order we go in? Let Chris go next. Your microphone's not working again, Chris. Yeah, I think something's going on there.
So weird.
I know. I don't know. All right, now try it again. Unmute.
Yeah, she's muted.
Yep. No. Bummer. I wonder if it's the computer settings that are causing the issue. I don't know if unplugging the mic and plugging it back in might help, but see, even with professional software, you can't always avoid tech issues, but that's okay because we still got the dark side going on up in here.
But this software is way better than anything we've used.
So good. All right. Well, maybe what we'll do is I'll kick it over to Jose for now, and then I don't know if you have another like mic that you want to try to use, or alternatively, you could, if you have a phone, you could call into the call on your phone. That might work. But in the meantime, why don't we kick over to Jose? So Jose, where do you want to sort of set the scene or start the scene?
Well, I was thinking he was with his brother in like a really heavy market, like they were just like out getting some food.
Okay. On Nar Shaddaa?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. So I think what's happening is you're on Nar Shaddaa, right? And you've been here for a while. Your brother Jonathan is next to you. And you guys have been told to, let's see. Oh, I was hoping that, let's see if everything put it back the way it was supposed to. Nope, that's a bummer. Oh well, no worries. Don't worry about it. Chris, try speaking. See if we can hear you. Shoot, no bueno. Yeah, I'm wondering if we can get if we can somehow get audio corrected here, but we'll figure it out. But anyway, so in the meantime, Zach, yeah, you and your brother are in the market, and you have been sent here. What have you been sent to get? Just like food or like specific supplies? Like, are you kind of running a job or?
Pretty much they just got done like doing a job. They were like delivering stuff, so they were just like catching up and getting something to you.
Okay, great. Yep. So as you sort of like go to this noodle house to get something to eat, you kind of look down the alleyway, and just as you're kind of looking down, you see this like gang, this like swoop gang kind of pull in, right? And you know these guys. These guys have been giving you a hard time for a while now. These guys are pretty bad news. And you kind of look over to your brother and you say to him, well, what would you say to him, knowing that, you know, like these guys are here and they're probably going to try to cause you guys some trouble?
He probably would ask him if maybe he could like go like around the alley or somewhere where they can't see him in case, you know, it gets bad.
Yeah. So you're like, all right, we got to get out of here. And he's like, yeah, I think you're right. And so you guys kind of get up, right? And maybe like, you know, leave the noodles on the table, and then you come over and you start to kind of make your way out of like another part of the alleyway, right, in this market. But as you're doing so, you start to see a couple of other swoop gangers pull in at the exit where you were going to go, and then again at the other exit. Like you see they're blocking you in. Something is going down here, and you're not quite sure what's going on. And as you get there, you realize as you kind of run to the last exit, they've got you surrounded, and the first group kind of comes in and just two guys, an Aqualish and like this big Trandoshan, right, with this big gun in his hand. They just start coming in, and the market starts to clear out a little bit. People realize like violence is about to happen here, right? And so they start clearing out. And the thugs, the gang, kind of like throwing these guys, away, get out of here, whatever. They punch some of them, just like basically just being mean. And then the Trandoshan comes up, and he looks to Jonathan and he says, "Boy, we've been chasing you far too long. You cost us good half a day looking for you. Now listen, you owe us a lot of money. You pay up, and we will only have to break your arm. You don't pay up, well, I'm afraid we break your face." And Jonathan doesn't have any money. And he's looking, and he would be the kind that would try to like kind of sweet talk him a little bit. He's like, guys, look, I got your money. I just don't have it here, right? I mean, I wouldn't come out to this market with a lot of money. I'll get robbed. We'll just go back, talk to my father. I'll get the money. No, we're not talking to your father. You don't got money. We'll take something of value. And they look over to you, Zach, and they'll say, he'd fetch a good price on the slave market. Pay up for him.
He's saying that like towards the brother.
Oh yeah. He's saying it to Jonathan, but like he doesn't care that you hear. Yeah.
He would probably like look at Jonathan and give him like a little wink, like shit's about to go down, and then he would turn around and he would be like, "I got your money. Come and get it."
And he looks to you and he says, "All right." And he comes in a little bit closer, and he he's like, he's got his rifle like up, and the other guy's got his rifle trained right on you. And Jonathan looks over to you and kind of whispers, like, "What are you doing?"
He would probably like whisper back like, "You need to fucking run now." And as he says that, he will go like he's about to, get whatever for them out of his pockets. Like he probably has like a big, jacket and stuff. And then he would just take out his vibro knife and try to like hit the guy like underneath the chin, just catch him.
All right. And like as you do that, you try to do that, and he just like whacks your hand, and the vibro knife goes flying out of your hand and onto the thing, and he's like rearing back for like a punch right to your face. But it seems as though you like, I mean, you could feel it, right? Like you've got this this sense that something is happening. And what will you do? He's about to punch you.
Well, what I was thinking about doing, to see if it was okay with you, is that pretty much he's like, he's feeling something. He's like also like angry and agitated. And as this guy goes to hit him, he will wave his hand, just trying to like, pretty much like hit him or something. But he would end up like force pushing him by accident.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you kind of do that, right? You, as he's going to push you, you kind of like just channel this rage and this anger. Actually, if you will, go ahead and roll a force dice for me. Whoops, sorry, I was rolling too many here by mistake. You just right up in where it says dice pool, you just click the middle one up. All right. And so did you actually take the extra to knock your morality below 30, or did you not do that?
I did.
You did? Okay. So then in that case, you can use the force, but you will have to, you'll have to take some strain. We'll theoretically flip the dark side point because we don't, we didn't actually roll any. But you manage to draw on the force and push him. And I think what happens is as you do that, he goes flying back. The other gang member was like, whoa, which is, he realizes like this guy just used the force, and he's like, and then you hear somebody yelling, Jedi, Jedi, there's a Jedi in here, and somebody else is like, shut up, there's no Jedi, the Jedi don't exist. Well, he just used the force. It's like, that's a myth. What are you talking about? But the gang starts to like get out of there. They're like, whoa. And the Trandoshan scrabbles back, and then he's like, he kind of looks at you, and he's like, you're dead, boy. Not for me.
I think in reply he would be like, you mean you're dead? Because if you've seen what I can do right now, you don't have no idea what else I can do.
And he backs up and he says, oh, I'll be getting the money that I want. Not from you maybe, but from the Empire for sure. And he kind of like backs up a little bit. And I mean, the other guy, he's backed up too, but he's got his gun trained on you. And you see that like he's trying, like the guy, one of the gang members is like on their comm, like calling somebody. And you get the impression they're calling the Empire. They're calling in a bounty. And also on Nar Shaddaa, there is a orbital shipyard where, there's Imperial ships there and dry dock. So there's always some Imperials, a little bit anyway, on Nar Shaddaa.
With all this commotion, and I imagine that the guy who has the gun trained on me, he's probably panicking because he's never seen anything like that before.
Mm-hmm.
I want to pretty much grab the brother and just run out. Be telling him to run home and not look back.
Okay, like both of you would try to do that?
Yeah, like I would grab him and run with him and just have him go that way because I'm gonna take off like another way.
Okay, and then I think what happens is as you do that, you feel this like blast of energy shoot right past you, and you see like the blue rings of like a stun blast. And as you kind of dodge out of the way, I think you trip a little bit, and you trip into this alley, and you fall for a moment, but you manage to get up, and you kind of start making your way out of the alley, but as you do so, the guy behind you kind of pulls in on his speeder bike, and you see, his speeder bike has two like blasters on it, and he starts firing not at you but ahead of you, and like all of these, like it's a cart and all this, these boxes and debris, whatever, basically impede your way. And then he's basically standing there saying, "Don't move, kid, or I'll blast you." And I mean, he'll kill you if he blasts you with those things. And so you don't have much of a choice. You have to kind of wait there. And it doesn't take long before you see a couple of stormtroopers come down, the alley, and they say, "Hey, you the one who called us in?" Yeah. There's a Force user over there. Stand aside. And they have their weapons trained at you, and then you see this woman walk in, accompanied by this man in this dark Imperial suit, and he looks to be like probably Imperial intelligence or something, and he says, "Well, Miss Lynn, is this something you wish me to take care of, or do you have this?" And she looks over to you, and she says, "Young man, these people have accused you of being a Jedi. What is it that you've done to get them so worked up?"
He would look down and like tug his jacket for a second, and he would be like, "I don't know. They wanted money, but I mean, look at me. I don't run around wearing a robe and playing with a little stick, do I?"
She says, "No, and yet I sense." She says, "Let me ask you something. If you could get off this planet, if you could have a better life, a life of power, not stuck here in this life-forsaken place, would you take that opportunity?"
You definitely got my attention.
She says, "It is a good opportunity, but it is not one that we give out to anyone, not for free." And she says, "That man, if you truly are what he says you are, do something. Show me your power. Hurt him."
He would probably just look back at her and he would be like, "Sure." And he would start walking up to him and like take out the other vibro knife that he had like in the back of his pants, and slowly start walking up to him, just looking at his eyes, see what he does.
Yeah, and he starts backing away, and he's like, "Ugh, no, what's going on here?" And she says, "No, not with your knife. Do something. Use that rage inside you. Hurt him." And narratively, since you use the push power already, we could say that potentially you could use it again. Just go ahead and roll another force dice for me, and we'll see what you get. Nice. All right. And so now, if you want, you feel this power surging through you. You could draw on this power and just shove him basically back against the wall of this thing if you wanted to do so.
I think I would probably try to do something different, something
Okay.
a little worse. Like he's in the bike,
Yeah.
and right next to the alley, there's like this fence that is all like jagged and messed up, and he would like push him so hard that he pretty much gets like impaled like right into it.
Nice. Yeah, I think that that happens, and then maybe like in your rage or something, the bike, the speeder bike too, starts like moving and kind of traps him up against the fence, and that's what sort of does it. And and you realize, that like this display of power is extremely dangerous, and yet when you look at this woman, she's got a great big smile on her face. The stormtroopers are terrified, and the not terrified, but they're like, holding their guns, like, standing as resolute as stormtroopers can. But the ISB agent, who you assume that's who it is, he's definitely taken aback. He's like, Jedi, I thought they were extinct. And she says, don't be a fool. He's not a Jedi. But the Force has not been extinguished from the galaxy just yet. And then she walks over to you and she says, good. Well done. It is that kind of power that will help you fight those that try to exploit you, those that try to hurt you. I can teach you. I can teach you to use that power, to increase that power. Would you like to come with me and learn more?
He would be like, absolutely, and then he would like bow, like, push his hand forward. He'd be like, ladies first, like he's gonna follow her.
Nice. And I think as that's happening, the ISB agent, he's like, ma'am, what? I need to call this in. And she's like, no, this didn't happen. You go back, you write it up that it was a false report. You don't have to pay this man. She kind of motions to the dead Trandoshan for the bounty. I think that is payment enough. And then she hands him a credit stick, and she says, I trust that you will keep your mouth shut. And he just kind of nods his head, and then the scene sort of fades out, and then we will fade over to Chris's character here, and Tiona, is that right?
Tiona, yes.
Tiona, where would we find Tiona?
I think she would be pulling a little smash and grab or something with her little pack of hooligans. I think they probably do some little courier services here and there for some of the really underhanded types in the town, the city where she lives. And I think when business is slow, they hit the little, galaxy pop and sip or snack and sip or whatever. And I think that her primary function in this little group is to mess with the computers when needed and to keep this old speeder running. I figure they've got the equivalent. I'm picturing like the equivalent of like a 55 Chevy Bel Air of speeders, right? But it hasn't been kept in mint condition, and she's probably the only reason the thing gets them anywhere ever. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe they're in the midst of a getaway when the thing breaks down. And so they're maybe in a kind of a public location when she has to repair it.
Okay. And so, yeah, maybe you're in the middle of the square, and the rest of your crew is like freaking out, right? Because they don't want the law enforcement to be there, and they know they're only a little ways away. And do you have any like force talents or force powers that you've taken that will help with this yet? No.
Just a talent. I took a talent. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. It's one that gives me it's mental tools.
Okay.
So it gives me, it's like having the right tools for the job anytime I'm performing a mechanic check.
Okay. And is it a force power specifically, like a force talent? I mean,
it's a force talent. Yeah.
Okay. And does it? Let me just see here. Sentinel.
97.
Person. Okay. Mental tools. Okay. Passive. All right. Cool. always count as having the right tool for the job when performing. Okay, great. So I think what happens here is you, the speeder, like the engine compartment, basically is just sparking and it's starting to leak fuel out of it. And I mean, like this really needs to be taken into the shop. But I think that you kind of go up to it and you pull your little tool belt out and you kind of look at it. And for a moment, I think you close your eyes and you visualize with what you've got, you know exactly what you need to do to kind of at least patch this up enough. And you kind of whistle over to your friend and motion for her to bring you. It's like sort of an emergency repair kit that you would have for a droid. And she like scavenged one. Maybe they took one from the snack and sip or whatever. And you're like, I'm gonna need that. And at first she looks kind of annoyed because she was gonna sell that, make a little bit of credits, but she's like, no, come on. I mean, I was gonna buy a new thing with this. Like, do you really need it?
Well, we can walk, or I can fix this thing right now. You choose.
Fine. And she hands it over to you.
I thought you'd see it my way.
And I think that like maybe, and Chris, if you will, do the same thing as everyone else. Go ahead and roll a force dice for me.
Nice.
So this is where I'm sort of playing fast and loose with the rules here, but I think that sometimes it can be fun to play a little bit more narratively like that with the force. And try it one more time for me, because I don't know if anybody else is seeing it, but I'm certainly not seeing the...
Huh.
Man, all right. Something's going on with Roll20. I'm not sure. Let me see if it'll work for me. Okay.
There we go.
We'll use mine for now.
Okay.
That's really weird. So, all right. So you can draw on this power. You've always felt it. There's this energy kind of radiating around you. And, maybe at first you kind of thought it was just the electricity of the machines you were working on or whatever, but it almost like a hollow, vid or something in front of you. Like you can picture the engine compartment like kind of revolving around, and you can see it, and you kind of put the repair patch on there, and you tighten up some bolts or whatever, and then you look to the driver, and he's kind of looking at you, and he's like, "Is it good to go?"
Hit it.
He's like, and he kind of turns the thing, and woo, woo, and the engine revs to life, and they're like, "Oh, good job, nice job, Tiana. Thank God you're here." And I think maybe like one of the people on the crew is sort of like a rival with you, and she kind of gives you this like this scowl or whatever. But at the same time, everybody's relieved. And you guys peel out just as like the local security forces are coming in, and you could hear the security forces kind of calling in for reinforcements. And so as this happens, you actually see you guys are coming up on this like main thoroughfare that's going to come into the city proper, and you had forgotten that today was like a sort of a big like imperial kind of parade or whatever, and so everything is on high alert, and there are checkpoints, and everybody's basically setting up these checkpoints, looking for these things, for anybody who might be causing trouble. And the leader of your group is kind of nervous at this point. He's like, "Oh my gosh, we can't go through that checkpoint. We're gonna get caught here. What are we gonna do?"
We gotta lose him in the crowd, or take that right up there.
And as he goes to take the right, the security kind of pulls in, and you hear this like, wah, 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 and you hear this, "Hey, you there, in the speeder, stop!" And then you see this other kind of Imperial patrol start coming in towards you, and he's like, "We're not gonna make it.
Go!"
And and so he starts peeling out, and for a minute, you guys kind of spin, And I think what happens is everybody kind of goes off balance for a minute, and it's at that moment that the rival girl that's in your gang kind of just gives you a little kick, and you fall off the speeder and down onto the thing.
Yeah.
And then as they converge on you, I wanted to know, Chris, did you take a look, and did you have any idea of like what force powers you might want to eventually take?
I really didn't.
Okay.
I mean, I looked through it, but I didn't really see anything that stood out for me.
Okay.
yet.
So what we'll do then for right now is we'll say that sort of in this moment of like panic and whatever, you can draw on the force in whatever kind of way that you manifest it.
Okay.
This will be mostly a narrative thing. So
Okay.
as these Imperial patrols are closing in on you, you feel that energy, that force kind of flowing through you, right? And you feel energized. What do you do with that? How do you kind of let that power out and let it manifest?
I think maybe I try to push their vehicles into each other.
Okay.
Like maybe a force push might be the most likely for her.
Oh, okay. Wow. So nice. And so go ahead again, and you know what? I'm just gonna do it because I don't know if your dice thing will work for whatever reason. Okay. So yeah. So if you want, you can reach out with the dark side. I feel like in your fear, because that would probably be the most prominent emotion right now. You can feel this energy, and you can feel the power that you have and how easy it is to grasp when in your fear. You instinctively almost reach out to it. Do you want to grab that power and shove their bikes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she kind of, and she closes her eyes, and she just kind of, almost like how she visualized the engine.
Mhm.
She just kind of sees that space, and she just gives them a shove to, like two heads getting knocked together.
Yeah. Wow, awesome. And then so I think that happens, right? And then as that happens, you can hear the Imperials. They kind of are taken aback for a minute, and they're like, "What just happened, Commander? We gotta call this in." And then poof, rifle butt to the head, and it knocks you out. And I think when you come to, your hands are like in binders, right? And you're on this like sort of makeshift gurney in this sort of sterile Imperial room. And this might be something that you were somewhat used to. Maybe not like a gurney, but there's possibilities that you've been in trouble with the law before. And
yeah, she's a total delinquent.
But you can sense this something or someone seems to be in the room with you, and this is very just sort of ominous presence, way more ominous than you would expect for just like an Imperial, or even not Imperial. It might just be the local security office. And as you sit up, you see this woman sitting in the room here with an ISB agent, and those guys are bad news. You recognize ISB because those guys tend to be, they have like an office here because I think there's like suspected rebel activity nearby, and so if that's not bad enough, this woman is sitting there, and as you get up, she looks at you and she says, "Young lady, it seems you've caused quite a stir out in the town. What is your name?"
Tiona Mir.
And she reaches over to shake your hand, but it's the wrong hand because her other one is this big metal hand, right? And so she reaches over and holds her hand out to shake, and she says, "I am Ardyn Lynn. I understand that you may have you may have displayed some abilities that have drawn the attention of this man here. Is that right?"
I suppose that's true, yes.
She's like, people with gifts such as yours, they tend to see their lives go one of two ways. Either they end up dead or tortured in some imperial facility, or
My eyes widen in alarm at that.
yeah, or they end up exiled way out in the outer rim beyond any civilized areas where they would be safe from the empire, but not much of a life, I'm afraid. Always on the run. I don't imagine either of those options sound too great.
No.
If I had a third alternative, one that might help you learn your gift, apply your abilities in a way that could bring you power, fame, whatever you desire, would that be something that you would be interested in? Considering the alternatives.
Yeah, I could be interested in that.
She said, good. Very good. I notice. And then she says, let me ask you something. When you pushed those bikes, what were you feeling? What was your emotional state?
Well, honestly, I was just kind of panicked and desperate.
And when you reached out with that fear, it gave you power, did it not?
It did. I could see things.
See, people with abilities like yours and like mine, we can learn together to control that power, to use that fear in ways that you could control it, that you could channel it and turn it to your own uses. And then she holds out her hand again, and she's like, come with me and I will show you the pinnacle of your abilities in time.
Okay. That sounds good.
Very good. And so I think what would happen at that point is the scene again would sort of shift, and then it would shift back to the training room of the starship, and all of you would be sitting around, the five of you, the young Mary Ellen Kiga, and the masked Twi'lek Kazel, all sitting around waiting on Ardyn Lynn to provide some instruction. And she says, you have been here now several weeks and have gained the basic level of control over your abilities, but now it is time for your first test. She says, when you control the living force, there will be forces in your life that will try to destroy you, will seek you out, and will try to take that power from you. You must learn how to prevent that, how to stop them. And she looks to Kazel and she says, stand. And he stands up. And then she casts her eyes around the room, and I think she says, one of you will challenge him. You will fight, or you will use your abilities, but you must subdue him in one way or another, and then your training will truly commence. And that's where it'll end for today. So hopefully that was a kind of a fun prologue. We were going to do a little bit more character creation, but these guys are ambitious and they decided to create their characters ahead of time, which is great. Because I like to do the role-playing bits a little bit more than the character creation bits. And so we kind of, again, I played it a little bit fast and loose with the Force because these are beginning characters. You don't necessarily have a lot of Force powers, but I do believe that the Force, at the very least, should be able to help kind of influence events in certain ways. And so, hopefully, that was a fun enough experience, me, bumbling through my improv to try to make this happen. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And this is the beginning of what will be a campaign. I'm not sure yet what the timing is. Presumably we'll do it the same every 2 weeks that we had been. Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern, but we will figure it out. But I would love to give you guys an opportunity to just kind of quickly talk about sort of how it felt and what you're sort of thinking or feeling in anticipation of a dark side campaign. So I'll leave it to whoever wants to go first.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think from a player and GM perspective, you have to separate the player character from the real life players. You know what I mean? Because I can see a lot of like conflict and friction, and I think it will take us, remembering, hey, my guy is a character in the story. It's not me like having beef with you, the other player. So I think as long as we do that, like it could be really fun as long as we kind of like go in. And I think this group here has shown that with the last campaign, obviously. But I'm just talking for viewers at large. Like I think that's the hardest part about running an evil campaign is can the players go in knowing that they might be undercutting each other?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's really important because, like you said, in this type of campaign, it's one of those things where you have to sort of ride that line between when does it make sense to try to work with and help, my companions to accomplish our goals, and when does it make sense to, fight against them. So, yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Anthony said, I've wanted to play an evil campaign since I started RPGing. Mm-hmm. I am the guy that loves the bad guy in everything that I watch. You know what I mean? Like, you guys see, like, I'm wearing a Darth Vader shirt right now. You know what I mean? Like, Lord Vader I watched the first, Star Wars movie, and I was like, I like the black guy. And my dad was like, you're not supposed to like that guy. He's the bad guy. No, he's not. He's the cool one. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, thank you, Sam. When you said months ago that we were going to be able to maybe do Force users that were going to be on the dark side, I was the first one to say yes. If you remember, yeah, absolutely. This is something that I want to do so badly. And I wasn't sure exactly what to make, what to play. Yeah, it's so sick, dude. I wasn't sure exactly what to do, what to make, and we were all talking today, and she just seems right. You know what I mean? It's going to be neat to be able to play that half healer, half thing, and I think that we are all adult enough to make it so that it will be that give and take. You know what I mean? I know that a lot of the last game was a lot about backstabbing and so on and so forth, but this doesn't have to be that. Yes, we're all going to want to impress Ardyn Lynn, but we don't have to hurt each other to do so, because she'll hurt us even worse.
Although the very first thing she's asking you to do is hurt someone, but we'll see. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm interested to see how it'll go. Again, what I was telling you guys, my goal for this campaign is to really try to play up the emotional part of the things that you're going to be asked to do. So, if you're asked to kill somebody, if you're asked to hurt somebody with the Force, if you're asked to do something that, normally you wouldn't be allowed to do, I want to know the emotion behind it. Whether it is, no problem, I don't feel bad about this at all, or whether it's like, ooh, wow, yeah. Like, maybe,
and I hope I brought that already, a little bit with Vado, is that I mean, she's always been a good girl, or she was brought up that the Empire was bad and so on and so forth. And this woman that obviously is with the Empire told me to kill something like that. Didn't make a lot of sense to her, but it's gonna be fun to figure out why that is.
Yeah, for sure.
A good girl Night Sister, yeah. But the Night Sisters don't know they're bad. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's definitely gonna be fun.
They just do what they do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think figuring out how Tiona is gonna, how her powers are gonna manifest. Just kind of looking through what the force powers are. I just can't figure out like what would be the progression from being kind of mechanically and there's nothing there that I'm seeing that's just an obvious, oh, this is where she'd go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting trying to figure out how her powers will manifest themselves.
The more interesting thing is to see if we can get Chris Johnson to be a bad girl.
No, there's that.
See if we can get Chris Johnson to do some crazy ass shit. That's what we need to do.
Nice.
Yeah, I was really excited to play. Like, I know a lot of friends I've run an evil campaign before. A lot of people want you to run them. I feel like a lot of times it kind of devolves because evil is so generic that but yet everybody always seems to do the same like 3 things when they're being evil in a random place. You know what I mean? They rarely do you get players that like kind of connive, have a larger like really kind of arch evil kind of plan or anything creative or cool. Like, it rarely evolves into that. But they could be fun. But what I liked about this, when you threw it out there, I got excited too, just like Corey, because Star Wars is like super specific with their evilness. I mean, when you go into the expanded universe, it does kind of branch out, but the underlying tenet is Sith, the Force, sort of anti-Jedi. Like not anti meaning they are always against them, but the antithesis of them. So I knew where I would roughly be going, and those kind of borders really let you kind of like look at the classes and be like, oh, okay, I know where I'm going with this. But then you start to see all the different paths you could take to get there.
Yeah.
And I feel like it'll draw out more interesting anti-hero villain characters from us because we get to play with them. I was just really looking at all these classes, and I don't know, I like the way you can mix and match. You can go, you have your talent, that talent tree, and there's a lot of variation in there, just like the Empire, but these force powers really add another thing to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
really
for sure. Nice. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think what we're going to really try to focus on, this campaign is going to be a little bit different than the last one in the sense that this is going to be a little bit more mission-based, or I don't want to say mission-based necessarily because it's not, that kind of might give the connotation of like Age of Rebellion. It's not like that, but it's going to be more structured in that you will have tasks to accomplish each time, and those tasks will be, once you accomplish one task, you can move on to the next, whatever, right? But you don't all have to be there at the same time. And so the goal is that if for some reason somebody can't make it one day, that's okay, because the rest of you will press on with that task. And if you accomplish it, great. If you don't, then, you'll try again, or there'll be a different task. And then the other person, can do something similar. And the goal in theory is that they're all going to be tied around helping you learn your force powers, helping you seek out objects or people that are strong in the force, and just learning and growing. And so what I'll want from you guys obviously is let me know kind of what path you're thinking that you want to go down in terms of force powers, whether you think that a lightsaber is going to be a thing that you want. I'm assuming that'll be a yes, because who doesn't want a lightsaber? And we'll, there's character creation rules there. But
what kind of question is that, bro?
Well, traditionally lightsabers are flashy and they stand out, and so
You guys want this
they're
badass
dangerous.
light sword that cuts things in half and melts steel? And do you guys want? Nah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Draws all this attention. Cool. There will also be a lot of political intrigue in this, because, as you'll come to find out, Ardyn Lynn is involved with things that will either directly or indirectly influence you, and as we go along, you'll probably be asked to participate in things that will be incredibly dangerous, and may not benefit you all that much. So we'll take a look. But cool. So I think that is where I am going to end tonight. We will most likely pick it up again on July 15th, although we'll see depending on what we want to do, because I know we've got other things that we were planning. Are we going to do? No? Are we doing another game on the 15th?
No, it's AtCon.
What?
Some of us
Oh,
will
is it
be at
AtCon? All right. Well, so then
Yeah.
those of you that are not at AtCon, we will either play this or we will play something else. But theoretically, every 2 weeks on Sundays. So for all of those watching, thank you. For you guys that are playing, thanks for joining, and signing off.